Ladies
All
and
right, let's
gentlemen, we are
call the
live.
meeting to order. Before, roll call, please.
Mr. Fleckner,
Here.
Mr. Volas,
Here.
Mr. Sarah,
Here.
Mr. Dalpace, Mr. McLeister.
Here.
Before we get to the next item, I have two announcements. One, Mr. Van Gundy is unable to be here tonight. Roger Miller from the building department is here to represent him. Also, Mr. Dalplace has been excused because his company has prepared the plans for this project so that he would be unable to vote. So he will not be joining us this evening. Moving in, submittal of the minutes for August 7th, 2019 for your approval. Is there a motion for the minutes?
I'll motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Again, I remind you, speak near the mic. If you're talking to the neighbor, turn the mic with you. We're still in a learning process for this, so. A motion and a second. Roll call, please.
And if I might, before you vote on
Go
that,
ahead.
and the purpose is not just for everybody here to be able to hear you. This also feeds into the device that records you for posterity that they can use to go back and do the record. So that's why we asked that. Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Fleckner,
Yes.
Mr. Sarah,
Yes.
Mr. Volas,
Yes.
Mr. McLeister.
Abstain.
Okay, we have an adjudication hearing submitted by the North Canton Board of Education, a conditional use permit to add an additional classroom with a relocated modular classroom. Is there a representative here from the school board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
before the representative speaks, would you have the clerk swear in anyone that wishes to participate in the adjudication hearing?
Okay, anyone wishing to speak, if they would stand, please, and be sworn in by the clerk.
Mr. Fleckner, it's my understanding that the court reporter was going to swear them in.
Oh, okay, go ahead. So with only these two gentlemen, I assume nobody else in the audience is wishing to speak this evening?
And this is just for the adjudication
Correct.
hearing for the conditional use. The public meeting is available for anyone that wishes to speak.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fleckner. On behalf of North Kansas City Schools, I have Bill Griffiths, architect, with us from Saul Harris Day, certainly available to answer any technical questions. It is our wish to put this modular unit, when put together, will create 2 classrooms for our students. I don't know that it's something we want to do. We certainly don't want to do it long term. We're going to have a meeting next week to look at the future of our schools and certainly get public input on that at our own forum. Going through this, we found that modular classrooms were used at Claremont back in the mid to early 90s. We kind of find ourselves full circle here again. And so that's where we're at, but more than happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, you want to add any comments from you or Mr. Van Gundy?
For our department, we've discussed the use of these units, and Ohio Building Code does permit these units to be used. We understand you've purchased used units and they've been relocated. And Chapter 3410 allows us to use these buildings in a safe manner. We would ask that you do a yearly certificate of occupancy. We, in conjunction with our fire department, Fire Captain Gary Cohen, will make an annual inspection, and then this would just continue the use of the buildings as designed, as installed for the safety of the kids and the welfare of the city.
Very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would like to reiterate two conditions I would like to see on this permit, and one, that it be limited to 5 years with a renewal after that. And as Mr. Miller has indicated, that not only the fire department inspection is a automatic situation every year, but we would also like to include the inspection by the building department to ensure the structural integrity. And I believe you indicated that is not a problem with you. And of course, it's your intent also to build new elementary schools, hopefully within 5 years, that 5-year period. Should that not be able to happen, simply come back and we would extend the conditional use. Other questions or comments from the commission members? Well, I asked you before, you need to be sworn in, but go ahead. So could you swear this gentleman in?
The prefab
Your
modular.
name, please?
John Kistler, 727 Edgewood Street, Southeast, right behind the school. These are prefab trailer units that they use in hurricane and storm-ridden areas. They dilapidate real quickly. It's just plywood. The neighborhood is all brick, beautiful homes. These are trailers. They don't match the aesthetics at all. Not at all. 5 years, they're going to look so deteriorated in 5 years, just after a year. Did anybody think about whether they match the rest of the neighborhood? Did anybody put any thought into that? Nobody? Did anybody care whether they match the neighborhood, the aesthetics of the neighborhood? Did anybody care? Nobody cared.
From our point, sir, as a building department, we don't always have control over aesthetics.
Right.
But they are manufactured units. They were built in a factory. They were inspected, and they were certified as
Right,
compliant.
they're all wrapped up, ready to go, I know.
And that's why our department, in discussing with the administration, we wanted the opportunity to make a yearly inspection to be sure that these units are maintained in the very best possible condition.
Well, they look awful the way they are right now. They don't match the neighborhood, do they?
Well, I don't have a call on that as a building department official. I
Well,
apologize,
you can,
sir.
if you saw them, you see that. I don't know if you've seen them, but
I have, I'm also, I went
it's
to,
going to look awful, is what I'm saying. It's going to look awful.
What, did
Does
you
anybody
live?
care?
Did you live there when the previous trailer was there?
There's never been any prefab buildings out in that field. Maybe they had them on the other side.
They
But
did.
see,
They
these are gonna be
did.
right out in the middle of the field.
They did.
Well, I didn't see them. It wasn't for very long. These are going to be permanent, it sounds like, and if it doesn't happen in 5 years, they'll stay there longer.
I don't think the intent is to have it permanent.
But 5 years is too long, guys. I was thinking maybe a year I could get away with because you fell behind or mismanagement or money maybe or something, but not 5 years? These are to be used temporarily till a new school gets built in
Right.
tornado and hurricane, storm-ridden areas. Not for 5 years till you build a new classroom, till you add on. These are just temporary, where there's been a hurricane or something.
That's the intent. As soon as the new
But there's
school is
been no
built.
hurricane around here or
We're-
tornado.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. Sure.
Do you have any additional comments?
No, I'm just worried about the looks, guys. It's not going to match the neighborhood.
I know you've said
Yeah.
that.
I want the kids to be educated and taught. I'm all for that. And if there's a shortage of money or some mismanagement that we have to put these up, that's okay. That happens. But not 5 years. It's going to look awful. It doesn't match the neighborhood. Now, my dad and I built the Grand Haven Air Dome out there. We had to go to every neighbor around the place, around the business, and prove to them it was going to blend in. We had to put a 6-foot concrete block wall up around that air dome. Huge air dome.
That has
Could've
nothing
attached
to-
it right to the
excuse
ground.
me.
The neighbors made us to match
Excuse
the
me.
neighborhood. Now, he interrupted me. I want you to...
I know, but your time limit is almost up.
Okay.
And That has nothing to do with what we're talking
Well,
about.
I'm just saying, sorry.
That has nothing to do with this issue. And
I was just citing an example.
yes, I understand.
Yeah.
You have anything else you would like to say?
No, I'm just really concerned about the looks, and I'll leave it with that.
Well, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, North Canton does not have an architectural review board, so we certainly don't review aesthetics with any construction, whether it's a house, commercial building, apartments, whatever. North Canton does not have a architectural review board, so we don't determine those issues. Any other comments? No. Well, no, there will be no more meetings. Whenever they can get the pad poured and everything electric.
Yeah, so we haven't broken ground or anything like that. Certainly, we'll follow all the rules, procedures, pull permits, and things like that. I can assure you we will not allow them to look dilapidated. I will apologize that they are siding. I can't change that at this point in time. I think so. I don't go any further than to say I can assure you that we will not allow these to look dilapidated in any way, shape, or form. And it's certainly easy for me to say, do I live in the city? Absolutely, I do. Is it my neighborhood? No, it's not. Well, there'll be skirting around it, obviously for the bottom, both for safety and aesthetics. We're certainly open to landscaping. Yeah. Yeah, I'm certainly open to it. I know we've communicated by email, and I'm happy to continue that as well to make the neighbors happy. Okay, that's the least. If landscaping is the request of the majority or a consensus, absolutely. There's no issues there.
Thank you. Other questions, comments from the commission?
Yeah, I've got a question here. So how many children are going to be in each classroom, are you expecting?
Well under what it's rated for, which I believe is probably pushing 68, is that correct? We're probably going to have probably in the 25 to 30 range. That's going to be 2 classrooms. Square footage is actually going to be equal or slightly larger than our current classrooms. So it's going to be 1 special education unit and what we call Title I reading.
Currently there is a field right beside it.
Correct.
Is that field still going to be able to be utilized?
Yeah, so we've worked with North Canton Youth Football, who uses what I would call, I guess, the south field. Now, the 2 fields on the east side won't be touched at all. Those are used for grades 9 through 12, soccer in the fall, boys and girls, as well as lacrosse in the spring, boys and girls. So we've had some discussions with North Canton Youth Football, and they're in a good position.
But it does affect the youth football field.
Yeah, it does infringe upon what you would call their unobstructed space. Now, they do have the one shed there as well, too, right now. They don't play games there or anything like that. It's strictly a practice field.
Yeah, but it does shut that practice field down. Right. I know, I used to live in this allotment. So it does affect that field. They will not be able to use it, correct?
Correct, it does affect the field.
And then there's an existing storage shed that's located there. What's inside the shed?
North Canton Youth Football stores equipment there.
Well, you don't need a shed anymore, do you? You're taking the field away.
No, North Canton Youth Football doesn't feel that it infringes on their space. They currently have about 3 teams practice there per evening. If they felt the need to cut down to 2, they could.
So with the school system, do we have other modular classrooms being utilized?
Yes, we do. On Main Street, we have one located, I guess it would be directly south of the St. Paul's school building. So it'd be on the west side of the road, directly south of the St. Paul's school building.
Yes,
Familiar with
okay,
that?
I do remember that one.
It's recessed as well from the street, of
It's
course.
been there for quite a while, though,
I would imagine it's been there since 80s or 90s without
and it's
being
never
positive.
been touched.
in terms of remodeling and things like that. We've certainly worked on the roof on occasion and addressed the steps and things like that as it comes needed. So, and then obviously we're subject to fire inspections and things like that yearly.
So I guess what really drove this to put these modular units at Claremont?
Yeah, so education looks a lot different than it did 20 years ago. A lot of times students that would have gone to MRDDs or now the Stark County Developmental Board no longer do so, both because they've reduced their services and parents have the right to send their kids to local public schools. So while our enrollment doesn't look drastically different than it did at any other point in time, the way we need to separate our kids does. So we'll have rooms that aren't being used to their max capacity of 25 or 29. And as I also mentioned, the title reading funds. So those are federal grant dollars that come to us every year. I'm sure everybody's heard about the third grade reading guarantee and things like that, but I think we're all in agreement that if kids don't learn to read well early, it's going to lead to problems immediately and down the road. So we'll have small group instruction with those kids, sometimes one-on-one, but sometimes small group. So we've got a lot of things going on that just didn't exist years ago. Our enrollment is strong, but I'm not going to tell you that it's any different than any of the other decades that we've had. We do try to offer our students some of the best opportunities in North Canton in terms of fine arts, music, art, education, and things like that. So we have those, we call them specials. Obviously, phys ed is another special that we have, which also needs space for those teachers as well, too. So there's a lot going on.
So we have other elementary schools in the city.
Correct, yeah.
Is there space there to be able to have these two classrooms?
I guess that would incur redistricting, rehandle the districts to balance. Students have a right to go to their local school, so the school district would need to change. I guess it's the Apple Grove boundary that we've been using for quite a few years, where students north of Apple Grove attend Northwood to Greentown, students south of Apple Grove attend Claremont to Orchard Hill. Okay. And we do allow inter-district transfers by parent request, but nothing mandated by the superintendent.
I understand. I can see that, but I'm just having a hard time understanding why all of a sudden Claremont is out of space. Why we need these.
Yeah. Well, we've been bursting at the seams for years. We've had teachers on carts. We've added a special education classroom this year to handle a different student population. As I've made the comment before, not to this board, maybe when we grew up there was a special education classroom. Now there's special education classrooms to meet various needs. We have students in every situation from still with diapers on during the school day, multiple handicaps, things like that, as well as your traditional learning difficulties. As I said, there's been a change in public education as a result of the change in services as well as parent right to choose. For a lot of kids that would have gone to MRDDs 10 and 20 years ago, no questions asked, we're educating them every day.
I guess one of my concerns is that our kids are having to walk outside of the warm classroom, school, into cold weather to get into a trailer that may or may not adequately be heated through the winter months.
Well, I won't dispute they will walk outside. I am confident they will be adequately heated and as well as air conditioned.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the commission? Is there a motion?
Yes, I would move that we grant the conditional use for a period of 5 years, and that it would be subject to yearly inspections by the fire department and building department.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Fleckner,
Yes.
Mr. Sarah,
No.
Mr. Volas,
Yes.
Mr. McLeister.
Yes.
Thank you. moving on to the public meeting portion, which is by the North Canton Board of Education, a general development plan and final development plan for an additional classroom with a relocated modular classroom. Do you want to, any additional comments you want to make?
Yeah, I guess I'll just follow up on the last point of, obviously, we do know our kids are going outside. That does put internal pressure on us to make this right. You guys could grant us a 20-year approval of this. It wouldn't change our goal to do this right as soon as we can. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, Roger, on the building portion?
Does it simply, we'll make every effort to keep these buildings proper. We've worked with the school system. They've been very accommodating. I don't see any problem with compliance at all with keeping the buildings up and safe.
Anyone in the audience have any comments at this point? Open it up to any questions, comments from the commission?
Question about the additional classroom that would be added. So is the plan to add a second and a third one? And if so, would it go perpendicular or parallel to it, or would it just make them double wide? Is that the plan?
Well, so there's no plans further than what you see on the architectural drawing. So when that unit is installed, it will be the 2 classrooms, all under the roof of the dimensions you guys have been given. No plans to go any further.
So it's not a second or a third trailer?
No, it's going to be put together one unit at those dimensions.
Thank you.
Clarification, if there is another trailer that's brought on, this will have to come back to this group.
Yes, yes. We are approving one trailer with 2 classrooms. Correct. Yes. Any modification would definitely have to come back. Correct. Yeah. It would have to come back to us. Any additional questions or comments from the commission?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just to clarify, these are 2 units manufactured that will be assembled as one open space classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
Question. One open space, the plan shows that there is a wall going between there, so I think it's 2 classrooms.
2
Correct?
classrooms.
It's not one big one, it's 2 classrooms. Okay. So it's basically a party wall. It's a party wall between the 2.
Right. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any additional discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Fleckner,
Yes.
Mr. Sarah,
No.
Mr. Volas,
Yes.
Mr. McLeister.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I see nothing else. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.